Well, as the old saying goes, there's too many books, but so little time. And too many authors as well, but, we'll get into more of that as this video goes along. Hello, everyone. Britton here, also known as Smoky Dude, and I'm back with another video today. A bit of a different video than usual. I mean, we will be still talking about books, but this won't necessarily be just about books today. There will still be books involved in this, but I'll get into it. Let's get into it. So, as you guys probably have seen on BookTube, there are definitely a lot of people who are always talking about books that they would like to read before the end of the year, or books they would like to get to in the future. I decided to do something a little different, because we like to do things a little differently out here in Smoky Dude land. So, today, I'm going to be talking about a good couple of authors that I would like to get into before too long, with a slight asterisk, with a couple of authors in there who I have only read one book from, but I would like to read more of in the near future. So, yeah. Here I'm going to go over some authors that I really would like to try, because, I find a lot of people don't always talk about authors. They more talk about the books themselves, which, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I would like to at least start this trend, maybe, of talking about authors that we would like to get into before too long. I think it could be a fun exercise for people, because there are certain authors, I've wanted to get into for years, and I'm like, and I keep pushing them back and pushing them back. But, someday I'll get to them. They're definitely on the high priority. So, yeah, here are 10 authors who I would like to get into, or would like to get more into, as the time goes on, and I won't really, I won't filibuster too much longer about this, but yeah, this is just a video I wanted to do. If anyone would like to do this kind of video as well, feel free. I've not really seen a lot of people get into this very much, but yeah, feel free to copy this video if you guys want to. But yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, here are 10 authors that I would like to get into before too long, with a slight asterisk, which I already explained. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, the first author I have on this list is one that a lot of people is really kind of a cult author. A lot of people on BookTube probably don't know him, unless you're, really into some, out there weird stuff. But that is William S. Burroughs. Yes, I've wanted to try more of Burroughs since I read Junkie when I was younger. I've only read Junkie from William S. Burroughs, which, from all accounts, is probably his most straightforward thing that he's ever done. I really don't have anything to say about it. It's a really good book. I really enjoyed it a lot. I think it's a really great exploration of what it's like to be addicted to drugs, though without the rampant moralizing that you might see in something like Requiem for a Dream or the like, which, nothing wrong with that, but definitely more on the train spotting, sort of on the train spotting side of things, where it's very frankly honest about what it's like to be a junkie, for lack of a better word. But I definitely would like to try more of William Burroughs' stuff at some point, because he definitely seems like an author who tried interesting things and, did things that most other people wouldn't dare dream. Now, while I am someone who generally likes a cohesive narrative and, characters and themes and all that, there are some times I do enjoy a book where it's just vibes, you just gotta go with the flow, man, and that's kind of what it seems like with some of William Burroughs' stuff. And he also wrote some science fiction. Very strange, out there science fiction, but science fiction nonetheless, so it's not completely alienated from the BookTube crowd. But yes, I would like to try more of William S. Burroughs sometime in the near future, for the reasons of experimentation. And also, I just really like the weird, transgressive kind of writers, like Irvine Welsh, who did Train Spotting. That's another author I'd like to get more into as time moves along. But anyway, yeah, William S. Burroughs is my first pick, and I would definitely like to get more into his stuff. So, yeah. Second author I have on here is a guy I've heard about for years. I haven't got into him because of, multiple reasons, and I keep pushing him back, but that is Dennis Johnson, D-E-N-I-S, no two N's, so it's just a one S. So is it Dennis? Denis? I don't know. I don't know if it really matters, but yeah, no, Dennis Johnson is an author I've wanted to try for a long time. I've heard him compared a lot to one of my favorite authors, that is Cormac McCarthy, in that kind of, he has this very like hard-boiled way of looking at things, kind of like how Cormac McCarthy does. He's kind of like what I like to call like hard-boiled literary fiction, if you will. I do have one of his books. I would like to try it before too long. I'm thinking either starting it this upcoming month or sometime in November. I'm not sure, or at the latest, at least early 2026. And the one book I have from him is this small fellow right here called Train Dreams. I picked this up because they're turning this into a movie on Netflix, and I thought, it's not very big. I don't really have a lot of books, in mind for the rest of the year, so yeah, you know what? Maybe I'll give this Train Dreams a try if I have enough time. And just from what the looks of it are at the moment, I do think I'll have enough time to get to this bad boy before too long. It's not very long. It's like 116 pages, I think. Let me look, because that's what it said on Goodreads. Yep, that's how many pages that this copy of Train Dreams is. I've heard a lot of people say this is a good book. It's very moving from all accounts. It's very... I'm getting kind of Border Trilogy vibes from this book, which, it's good enough for me. I've heard there's a lot of landscape porn in this, so yeah, that's always kind of a given. But yeah, there's a lot of it was either this one or his collection, Jesus' Son, that I thought about starting with first. But I decided to go with Train Dreams because the movie is coming out, or maybe it's come out already. I don't know. Maybe I'll check it once I'm done, and I'll put it here on the excuse me, maybe put it up above, you guys can read it. But yeah, no, Dennis Johnson is a writer I've wanted to try for a long time because, again, I've heard him compared a lot to Cormac McCarthy, and, I'm always looking for good stuff that's like Cormac McCarthy, that kind of weird, hard-edged, hard-boiled kind of style, but, I mean, it's not really crime, it's not really like crime fiction, but it's, like, I think hard-boiled gets, given the crime a lot, but I think hard-boiled's a little more than that. I would say that, I think, like, a Charles Bukowski or a Cormac McCarthy are definitely hard-boiled writers, but they don't usually write crime, with exceptions, of course. Cormac McCarthy did No Country for Old Men, which is very much a hard-boiled crime book. But anyway, Dennis Johnson is a author I've wanted to try for those reasons, and also just, I think his kind of, I guess, darkly poetic style that I've heard about him, it seems that it would be something I would enjoy. And a lot of my friends who are really into Cormac McCarthy have told me to check out Dennis Johnson. It's also like a historical book, so it takes place in the, I think, like the 19th century, I believe, like 19 something, I don't know. But yeah, no, Dennis Johnson is definitely a writer I would like to check out before too long. He's one I've been wanting to try for years. I've been pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back. Hasn't really gotten anywhere, unfortunately. So, yeah, maybe this year, finally, I will bite the bullet. I will, I'll take the gun out and shoot it. I'm gonna try Train Dreams. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And if I don't get to it this year, I am definitely going to next year. So, yeah, there we go on that. Next author I have on here that I would like to try before too long is another one that I've wanted to try for years, but I just keep pushing back and back and back because of just stuff just keeps getting in the way, and that is Salman Rushdie. I've wanted to get into this author for a very long time, mainly because his book, The Satanic Verses, is probably the most controversial novel ever written. Probably not, but it's definitely one of them. I know that, like, it's crazy the amount of backlash that Salman Rushdie got when he wrote that. I mean, the Islamic nations, radical Islamic nations, got really pissed off and issued a fatwa, which is basically like a I hate to say, if my, Islamic friends would like to correct me down in the comment section below, but from the sounds of it, it kind of sounds like a hit job, basically. I hate to put it in such coarse terms, but that's basically what it was, and there were people who died because of publishing it. Like, I think his Japanese translator got killed, and Salman Rushdie himself got stabbed a few years ago, lost the use of one of his eyes. But a lot of it goes down to that book. But I've also really been interested in Midnight's Children as well, which is the book that won him the Booker Prize. And, I'm reading A Brief History of Seven Killings right now. And that's a really interesting book. I think it's a really bold and imaginative book. And I'm curious what Salman Rushdie would do. And I also am really fascinated by authors who kind of tilt that line between kind of literary and and genre in the way that someone like a Michael Chabon or a Jonathan Lethem or even and I heard Salman Rushdie kind of does a similar thing. His books are very like fantastical, even though he calls them, magical realism, but whatever, I don't really care about that stuff. But yeah, Salman Rushdie is an author I've wanted to try for a long time. Definitely the Satanic Verses, because I hope my parents aren't overhearing me saying this, because, Anyway, I wanted to try that book, because, for one, I want to see what the fuss is about on that manner, but I would also like to check out some of his other books and see kind of that weird, thing he's got going. Midnight's Children, at least. I would like to check out that one as well, and maybe some other ones as well. I know Marlon James, an author I really like the book Shame. He really enjoys that book a lot, so maybe I'll try that book out. But if anyone wants to recommend me a Salman Rushdie book, because I haven't read any of his stuff at all, and the same thing with Dennis Johnson. If any of you have read Dennis Johnson or Salman Rushdie, and actually for any of these authors, if you want to recommend me any books where I should start or continue with any of these authors, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear you guys' recommendations if you would be curious. But yeah, Salman Rushdie is definitely an author I've wanted to try for a very long time. Well, for one, because of the Satanic Verses and that just huge controversy that happened because of it. But also, I think he has a very interesting style. I don't know if I would agree with him necessarily. He seems to be kind of on that note where he writes magical realism because he thinks he's too good to write fantasy. But which I generally think is nonsense. But I would still like to try his books. I'll put my irritations aside, and I would definitely like to try Salman Rushdie's books at some point, especially the Satanic Verses, because again, I want to see what all the controversy is about. So yeah. Let me know down below where I should start with Salman Rushdie or any of these authors in particular. So, yeah. Next author I have is one I've also read one book from, and that is Thomas Pynchon. Yes, I've only read this book, Inherent Vice, from him, which is this kind of weird, druggy, transgressive, noir kind of satire, I guess. It's kind of a satire of noir stories, but with this big drug theme. There's a lot of people who are just stoned throughout the entirety of the book. But Thomas Pynchon is one of those authors I had wanted to try for years. I kind of pushed him aside, and then a few years ago, my friend Jason had a buddy read of Inherent Vice. He actually was the one who gifted me this copy, so thank you, Jason. And also my friend Raph really likes him. There's a couple of other people who really like him, but Inherent Vice was an interesting book. I did like a lot of parts of it, but there was just parts of it that just kind of left me cold a little bit. I definitely would like to try more of Thomas Pynchon at some point, because I do like his style. He is very playful. He has a very enjoyable style that was fun to read for the most part. I mean, there were some parts where I was like, "What? Where are you going? Where are you going, Thomas Pynchon?" But I definitely would like to read more of his stuff. I am leaning on reading Vineland soon, because the new movie One Battle After Another from Paul Thomas Anderson is coming out in September. So I was thinking maybe I could sneak Vineland in before the movie comes out. Probably not, but I would like to sneak that book in before too long to see what the big hassle is about with that book. Though I heard it's one of his lesser liked books, but it's kind of grown over the years. I don't know, but it's definitely a book I would like to try at some point. And Inherent Vice was definitely an interesting book. It's definitely one that I want to read again, just to see if there were things that I missed about Inherent Vice. And there probably was, I'll be honest with you. But I kind of like Pynchon's weirdness. Kind of a similar reason I'm kind of interested in William S. Burroughs. I'm intrigued by the weirdness. I'm intrigued by the strangeness that Pynchon brings to his work. And I'm really hoping there will be one of his books out there that will click with me, and I'll be like, I see it now. I have that eureka moment on Mount Sinai, but we'll see. Inherent Vice was not that book, but I did think it was an interesting book. And Thomas Pynchon is definitely an author I would like to try more of, because I think that I think he's interesting. He's definitely one I want to keep my eye on. So yeah. Thomas Pynchon, definitely would like to check more of his stuff out at some point in the near future. Don't know when. And again, kind of like with Train Dreams, if I don't get to it in 2025, I'll see if I can save it towards 2026. We'll just see how it lands. But yeah, Inherent Vice. I've read this, but I've not read any of his other books. I would like to read more of his books, and if any of you have any recommendations, like I said before, let me know down in the comments. So yeah, I'll just put Inherent Vice down. Would like to reread Inherent Vice at some point, like I said. But anyway, moving on to the next guy. The next guy I actually got recommended to me because there was a commenter on one of my videos where I cover crime fiction. And he said, hey, this guy writes some really good stuff, and he's also showrunning the adaptation for Criminal by Ed Brubaker, who is one of my favorite comic writers of all time, and Criminal is definitely up there with one of his best works, and that guy is Jordan Harper. Jordan Harper. I got his book, She Rides Shotgun, because that is also being turned into a movie, and I thought, I got to give this book a shot before the movie comes out, which it's already out, but I would like to give this book a crack at some point. I was thinking of starting him next year. There's a book he wrote called Everybody Knows, which sounded like that sounds really, really sexy and dark and depraved, aka shit that I really like. But I decided to get She Rides Shotgun because, again, they made a movie of it this year, and it doesn't look that long. It's only about, let me see, 257 pages. That's not long. I could knock that out in a couple days. But anyway, I wanted to check this one out first because they made a movie of it, and I just feel kind of weird not watching the movie before reading the book. I just feel weird watching a movie before I watch the book, unless it's something like The Shining or the Annihilation adaptation, which are basically just different takes on the story. I don't know if that's the case with She Rides Shotgun, but I feel comforted more when I read the book first before I watch the movies. Because, I've had situations, like I did it with Gone Baby Gone with Dennis Lehane. It just gave away the whole book, and I just was kind of... It's still a great book, don't get me wrong. Gone Baby Gone is still a fantastic book. I'm not saying it's a bad book, but watching the film first did kind of take away the experience of engaging with the book for the first time. So I generally like to go with the book first. But Jordan Harper is a guy I've heard about a lot. I've watched interviews with him. I've heard interviews with him. He seems like a really cool guy. He tends to write like really lean stuff. I know he's written a couple things, but he didn't really blow up until last year with Everybody Knows. And Everybody Knows was the book I was going to start with first. But then I decided to pick up She Rides Shotgun because I kind of like the whole Bonnie and Clyde kind of criminals on the lam. And it's kind of the badass dad with the little kid story. I really like that kind of story. So, but yeah, I've heard a lot about Jordan Harper from a lot of people. A lot of authors I really like, enjoy him. S.A. Cosby especially really likes Jordan Harper. Dennis Lehane spoke very highly of Everybody Knows. And he's also working with Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips to do Criminals. So yeah, I'm definitely want to check out Jordan Harper before too long. And I am definitely going to read Everybody Knows in 2026 because I don't want to give away my 2026 plans yet. But I have a lot of plans, we'll say. So I'll save it for my 2026 ideas and stuff that I have before the end of the year. So yeah, She Rides Shotgun. Jordan Harper is definitely a writer I've wanted to read for a while based on recommendations from people like Carl from Please Read Your Book, who has done a lot of videos talking about Jordan Harper stuff. And of course, the really great comments I got. I forget the guy's name who commented about, hey, Britton, you should check out Jordan Harper. He writes a lot of good stuff. But thank you to that commenter. And if you watch this video, I will definitely be checking out Jordan Harper soon. So your recommendations have paid off. So, yeah, there you go. Jordan Harper. Keep it on with the hard-boiled theme, the hard-boiled noir theme. Next author I've been wanting to check out for a long time, but I've just kept putting off, is George Pelecanos. Yes, I have George Pelecanos. A lot of people might know him from writing a lot of books about the Washington, D.C. area, but a lot of other people might know him because he works with David Simon, who created The Wire. He has he wrote episodes of The Wire, basically a lot of the real big ones, especially the penultimate episodes. He wrote a lot of those, and but he's also a very accomplished writer as well. He's written a lot of crime novels. I think he's taken a break from that to do more TV stuff. But the book, I did get one of his books, which is a standalone. I made sure that this was technically a standalone, and that is The Man Who Came Uptown. I've not really heard too much about it. I've only heard that it's about an ex-con who takes up reading while he was in jail and decides to get out and, just hang out and start reading all day, which, you know what, it's not a bad gig. But it gets a wrench gets thrown into that because, of course it does. It's, a book's got to happen. But, I really like the episodes of The Wire I've seen George Pelecanos do, and, I've wanted to check out a lot of the guys who wrote for The Wire. Dennis Lehane, who's probably my favorite crime writer of all time, definitely my favorite modern crime writer, wrote for The Wire. He did a couple of episodes. A couple people like Richard Price did it, and did a couple of episodes, and his book Clockers is definitely one that I would like to read before too long. Because I've heard that one's really good, and also a really good book if you're a fan of The Wire. But back to Pelecanos. Pelecanos was one of the big guys who was on The Wire, who really took a shine to the material. And The Man Who Came Uptown is a standalone. I was trying to not get into the big series, before too long. I'm sure they're fine. I mean, unless you're like James Ellroy, it's not the most complicated stuff to read, crime fiction, that is. But George Pelecanos, The Man Who Came Uptown, is definitely going to be my first George Pelecanos read. But if anyone has read George Pelecanos, I don't really see him covered on BookTube all that much. I don't really see him in bookstores either. I just found this where did I find it at? I found it at Half Price Books. I found this just kind of on a whim at a Half Price Books. I'm like, well, I wanted to try Pelecanos for a few years, so I picked it up. And it is standalone, so that's good. And but if anyone has read George Pelecanos, let me know if I should start here, or if there's any other places I could start as well. But George Pelecanos, definitely an author I would like to try before too long. So yeah, I'll just put him down. Going off of the hard-boiled theme, but going back into the kind of weird postmodern stuff, another author I've wanted to try for a very, very long time, but I just don't really know where to start. You know him, you love him. If you're kind of irritated at the dude bro writers, just hold your horses. But yeah, it's David Foster Wallace. I have wanted to read David Foster Wallace for a very, very long time. I haven't read Infinite Jest. I know a lot of people love Infinite Jest. I know a lot of people like his nonfiction stuff. And a lot of people have told me to start with his nonfiction stuff first to kind of get a gist of how he writes. But a lot of people remember Infinite Jest because it's a very famous book, and apparently it's very salient for what's going on right now, and it's very strange and weird and whatnot. I've seen people like Life on Books talk about David Foster Wallace. A lot of the booktubers who talk about the capital L literature, if you want to call it that, talk a lot about David Foster Wallace. But yeah, David Foster Wallace is a writer I've wanted to try for years. Kind of like with Salman Rushdie. He's one of those guys I've wanted to try for a very, very long time. It's just I just don't really know where to start. I may start with one of his essay collections because, again, that's where a lot of people say I should start with them because they're more approachable, let's say, than Infinite Jest. But I've heard a lot of people say that Infinite Jest is very approachable, too. So it's not a complete, it's not like this impenetrable maze, as a Gravity's Rainbow from one of the other authors I talked about on this list, Thomas Pynchon. But I've heard David Foster Wallace is kind of in that vein of Thomas Pynchon, likes to write these big, kaleidoscopic novels. I probably butchered the pronunciation of that. I'm really sorry, but I've really I've really wanted to try it for a long time because I do like to challenge myself as a reader, and I think that Wallace might appeal to me if I just have the right person to Sherpa me along on the journey to reading David Foster Wallace. But yeah, David Foster Wallace is one I've wanted to try for a very long time, and I just don't know where or when to start him because, again, he has a lot of... his books are apparently very dense, so just, get that out of the way. But yeah, so David Foster Wallace. Not really much else to be said. I bet you guys are probably tired of me talking about these big-wig literary writers and these crime fiction writers. No one gives a shit about that on BookTube. So yeah, I will reward you guys for watching this far, and I will talk about I will spend the rest of the list talking about science fiction and fantasy authors. So there you go. The second to last person I'll be talking about is Kim Stanley Robinson. Yes, the noted science fiction writer. He's written stuff like the Mars Trilogy and Aurora and 2140, I think is what it's called, New York. Basically, he really likes to imagine futures, basically. He likes to imagine futures for humanity. I am considering picking up the Mars Trilogy because I read the first maybe paragraph of Red Mars, and I thought, man, this is some good shit. I gotta try this out. So yeah, but also I was intrigued by Kim Stanley Robinson because while he generally is, from all accounts, more of a more realistic writer, he does have a fondness for one of my favorite science fiction authors, Philip K. Dick. And if someone likes Philip K. Dick, I don't care what your politics or religious creed or whatever you are that I might disagree with, if you like Philip K. Dick, that makes you a pretty cool guy in my book. Though, from all accounts, I hear he doesn't really write like Philip K. Dick, so I can live with that. But as long as he likes Philip K. Dick, I can fuck with this guy. But yeah, I really am intrigued. I really am intrigued by Kim Stanley Robinson. I think he might have some really interesting directions. And I'm always looking for more science fiction to read from good modern authors because I'm really frustrated with a lot of science fiction. At least the traditionally published science fiction, because a lot of it is either fucking Ready Player One popcorn bullshit, or it's like Andy Weir popcorn bullshit. I like Andy Weir's The Martian, though, so I can't really complain too much about that. I'm sick of the fucking the popcorn science fiction is what I'm saying. I really want some truly heady, engaging, philosophical science fiction, and that's what it seems that Kim Stanley Robinson will provide. And also, Red Mars takes place in 2026. If that is not a sign for me to read that in 2026... I don't know what is. I really don't know what is. I'm sorry, I'm scratching here. But, yeah, so, not really much else to say. Alright, last two authors, I swear, are fantasy authors, and we'll probably get a bunch of people squeeing, but, calm down. Let me just explain who they are first before you, start freaking out. But the penultimate pick for authors I would like to get into before too long, the penultimate pick is Anna Smith Spark. Yes, this is an author I have wanted to read for a while now because I've heard interviews with her. I have seen people who really enjoy her work talk about her a lot. And from all accounts, she writes this really dark, poetic, gritty fantasy, or grimdark, as some people like to call it. I prefer to call it gritty fantasy, but whatever. But from all accounts, she tends to write this really dark, poetic kind of fantasy, and that just oh man, like I really fuck with that. I really would like to see, and it actually seems like she manages to make that kind of ugliness that is ingrained in gritty fantasy beautiful in a bizarre sense, maybe in a sense. The first book I wanted to get from her was this book, Sword of Bronze and Ashes. I thought this was a standalone, but I think there's a sequel of it that is coming out soon, so I guess it's not a standalone, but whatever. I really loved the cover art of this book, and I thought it looked really neat. I thought it looked really nice, and I like her. I like Anna Smith Sparks' energy. She likes a lot of really cool stuff as well, so, and she seems to have lived an interesting life, and she also has autism from the accounts of it. I mean, hey, we Aspies got to stay together. And Anna Smith Spark, though, from all accounts, I heard she writes this really darkly poetic, very visceral, kind of gritty fantasy, which is, really that's just in my bag. I love darkly poetic stuff. I also like gritty fantasy, when it's done well, of course. And I'm also curious to see gritty fantasy from a female perspective, because generally, like, gritty fantasy is written by dudes, which, like, nothing wrong with that. But generally, when I think of gritty fantasy, I generally think of, like, machismo, even something like Black Leopard, Red Wolf, which I wouldn't say is quite gritty fantasy, but it definitely falls into that category from time to time. Is very much about masculinity, is very much about men. But I haven't really seen a grimdark or gritty fantasy from the female perspective, and I definitely would enjoy to. I definitely would like seeing grimdark / gritty fantasy from the female perspective. So hopefully, Anna Smith Spark will provide on that really dark, poetic kind of gritty fantasy. I know a lot of people really like Anna Smith Spark. I've had friends who've interviewed her, which is pretty awesome. And she seems like a really sweet lady. So, yeah, definitely would like to check Anna Smith Spark out. And this is definitely the first book I'm going to be trying from her. Unless some of you have any recommendations on where I should start with her, I'm going with this one because I like the cover art. So, sorry. All right, last one I have is a author in the fantasy sphere that I've wanted to try for a very, very long time. And just, for one reason or another, just haven't gotten the chance to yet. She is very much a titan in the fantasy genre. Many of you probably know who she is. You've at least heard of her, and that is Ursula K. Le Guin. Yes, Ursula K. Le Guin is an author I've wanted to try for years, but I didn't know where to start. I've heard a lot of conflicting answers. A lot of people say Earthsea, or one of her science fiction novels, or The Lathe of Heaven. I don't really know where I'm going to start with it. The one book I have from her is her nonfiction book, The Language of the Night, which is basically her thoughts on writing, and specifically writing science fiction and fantasy literature. I definitely enjoy... I'm definitely curious to see epic, kind of like what I was saying about Anna Smith Spark earlier. I generally would, I mean, a lot of people, when they think of, like, epic fantasy, they also kind of think of men a lot of the time. But I've always wanted to see, I have always wanted to see kind of epic fantasy from the female perspective, if you will. And I've heard, I don't know if epic fantasy is the right word to use for something like Earthsea, but I am curious to see what, like, a literary fantasy would look like from the female perspective. Because, on another hand, women have not always been treated very well in fantasy, so I would really like to see the female perspective in fantasy a lot more. And these are two authors alongside Anna Smith Spark that I would like to try before too long. But Ursula K. Le Guin especially, I mean, my God, I've wanted to try this woman for years. But again, I just don't know where I should start with her. I have thought of just going with Language of the Night, seeing how I vibe with her style, or maybe Earthsea. My friend Philip Chase has recommended Earthsea a lot on his channel, so I don't really know where to start with Ursula K. Le Guin, but I definitely would like to try her work before too long. I might just start with The Language of the Night, but if there's anyone in the comments who have any ideas on what books I should start, fictional-wise, from Ursula K. Le Guin, feel free to let me know. And like I've said before, with all these authors, let me know what you think on all these authors and where I should start with them. But yeah, so Ursula K. Le Guin is an author I've wanted to try for a very long time, but just don't know where to start. So yeah, that's kind of a trend with a lot of these authors. So yeah. And that's about it in terms of all the authors. I mean, there are more authors I would like to get to before too long, but these are like the 10 that have really been scratching at me a lot, either throughout the years or quite recently, because, there are certain authors I'm like, I want to get to them because I think I would enjoy them, but I haven't made the time yet. So, yeah. What are some authors you have wanted to try for a while, but you haven't gotten to yet? Let me know down in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe to all that fun stuff. You can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, where I write reviews. They're probably more coherent than what you just heard right now. You can also find me on Instagram and also Blue Sky. I don't really use Blue Sky all that much, but I am starting to get the hang of it. I also just recently got 100 followers on there, so thank you, everyone. But if you want to give me even more followers on there, feel free. I'm not complaining. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. As I say, like, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. As my buddy John Minton likes to say, feels good when you do it. So, I really don't have much else to say aside from that. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Until next time, see you guys later. Bye-bye.